Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Jason. Thanks for watching the channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about two major international soccer tournaments happening right now, the Copa America and the Euros. First though, a little bit about what this channel is all about. I plan on making videos for people who are looking to get into soccer but don't know too much about the sport. I don't expect you to know basic stuff like teams, players, even the rules. That's totally fine. I want to make these videos for people who want to get into soccer, don't have too much context, find other videos very confusing, and need to know some basic things. That's what these are all for. So here I'll be talking about two tournaments, but in future videos, I'll be talking about things like the players, the different clubs, the different leagues, the rules, tactics, formations, and all of that. So with all that being said, let's jump into talking about the Copa and the Euros, two of my favorite tournaments in all of world soccer. The Copa and the Euros are like the World Cup, but think about them as mini versions of it. FIFA, for better or worse, is the governing body of world soccer, and they've divided the world up into these 6 regions you can see here. The Euros focuses on just the European region, and the Copa normally focuses on just South America, but this is a special Copa where North, Central, and South America are all playing in this tournament together. The tournaments last about a month, with the Euros starting on June 14th, the Copa starting on June 20th, and they both end on the same day, July 14th. Now, this is like the Olympics and the World Cup in that it's international countries playing against one another. You're going to see Italy play France, you're going to see the United States play Argentina. You're not going to have professional clubs that maybe you've heard of playing involved in this tournament at all. So teams like Real Madrid or Barcelona or Manchester United, that's something totally separate. A lot of these players play on those teams, but this is players representing their countries as opposed to their professional clubs. The other 4 regions in that world map that you saw also have their own tournaments of their own, but those happen at different times, and we're just really lucky that this summer we have both the Copa and the Euros, the 2 biggest tournaments that happening at the same time, and get to watch them both. But in off years between the World Cup, Africa, Asia, Oceania, they also have their own tournament. North America is actually having their own version of it next year, and it's called the Gold Cup. The other regions do have their own respective tournaments, but the 2 biggest by far outside of the World Cup are the Euros and the Copa. And the reason for that is it's just the best number of players in this tournament. There are really good players in international countries from other parts of the world, but by far the greatest concentration is in Europe and South America. No country outside of Europe or South America have ever won the World Cup. And if you look at FIFA's global rankings, which is far from perfect, but it gives you a general idea of where teams lie, you can see that most of the best countries are from South America and Europe. First up, the Copa. The Copa is the world's oldest international tournament. It started back in 1916, and like the 100-year anniversary that played back in 2016, like I said, this is a special edition of the Copa. Normally, the tournament is only for South American countries, played in a South American country as well, but this time it's North, Central, and South America all playing together, and it's being hosted and played in the United States. There have already been regional qualifiers to see who's going to make the tournament, and it's been reduced down to 16 total teams, 10 from South America and 6 from North and Central America. So while the Copa is going to be a really fun tournament to watch, there's no question that the Euros is the bigger of the two. And the reason for that simply is there's much, much better teams playing. South America definitely has some very elite level countries, but there's just a whole lot more coming from Europe. So if you're looking to watch the very, very best countries play, Euros is the way to go. It's maybe not the most fun tournament. I think the African Cup of Nations definitely gets that honor just because of how unpredictable and just crazy it overall is. But the Euros is definitely the best countries playing. It's a tournament that you have to watch if you're a fan of soccer, and I really, really recommend it. It's a little bit bigger than the Copa, though, in that it's a total of 24 countries playing, as opposed to the Copa only having 16. One of the other really, really great things about the Euros is the unpredictable nature of it. You really never know who's going to win the Euros because there are so many great teams. Any of them can pull it off. But also, we've had teams like Greece, Czechoslovakia, and the Soviet Union win in the past. In fact, there have been only 8 winners across 22 different World Cups, but in only 16 Euros, there have been 10 different winners. It really is a totally open tournament, and you never know who's going to win. Both the Copa and the Euros have a similar tournament format. There's group stages followed by single elimination matches. In the Copa, there are 4 groups, each with 4 teams. In the Euros, there are 6 groups, also each with 4 teams. Each of the tournaments will have the groups play the others in their own group once, and based on how they do that, they then move on. In the Copa, the top two teams from each group will move on to the elimination matches. And in the Euros, the top two teams also advance, as do a handful of the third place teams, just to make sure the numbers even themselves out. Also worth mentioning is that these tournaments right now are only for the men's national teams. The women do have their own version of the Copa, the Euros, and the World Cup, but those happen on totally different time frames and in different countries. The Copa is a little easier to predict as far as how it's going to play out than the Euros, mainly due to the fact that there's less countries involved and also there's less elite level teams that are likely to win the whole thing. Going back to FIFA's global world rankings, you can see here Argentina and Brazil really stand out. They are two of the best countries in the history of the sport. They've won the World Cup many times each, they've won the Copa many times each, and they've produced many of the best players in the history of the game. Players like Pelé, Maradona, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, not that one, but this one, and of course, Lionel Messi. He's unquestionably been the face of the sport for the last 10 years, and most people considered him to be among the very best that ever played the game, many calling him flat out the very best player to ever kick a soccer ball. He has won every personal and team award possible, including winning the Ballon d'Or, which is the award for the best player in the world, a record 8 times. The guy in second place with only 5 is this guy again. Brazil is also incredibly good on paper, but this is where one of the problems with FIFA's global world rankings comes up. It's based on historical performance in addition to recent performance, and honestly, a team that played 5 years ago is not the team that plays today, and that's where you get some of these problems. Brazil, though, unquestionably, historically, are one of the best countries in the history of the game, but I don't think anyone thinks the current Brazil team is the 5th best team in international soccer today. And all of this is before you get to the fact that they're missing their team captain, Neymar. He is one of the most technically skilled, entertaining players to watch, but he's also the poster boy for things like this, and he's going to be out of the tournament due to a real injury this time, and it's a huge loss for them. That being said, though, they're not a terrible team. They still have really good players like Vinicius and Endrick, who's up and coming. Rodrigo is also on their team. They're an incredibly solid team. There's a chance they can win the whole thing, but I don't think they're at the level of Argentina right now, and I definitely do not think they are number 5 in the world. That being said, though, the tournament is not a lock. Argentina are the favorites, Brazil are good, but there are others that have a chance of winning it as well. First, to get it out of the way, the US team, I'm a fan. They have no chance of winning the tournament. They're ranked number 11 in the world on paper, but that is comically incorrect. In my opinion, they're not even top 20. I think the team is just not playing cohesive as a group like they should. A lot of that goes down to their coach Berhalter, but in my opinion, they're going to barely get out of the group stage and they're going to get killed in their first elimination match. Unfortunately, the team is just not at the level they should be playing at right now, and hopefully this serves as a wake-up call for the World Cup happening also in the US in 2 years' time. In my opinion, the big underdog in the tournament has to be Colombia. Now, I say underdog because Argentina is involved, but they're still ranked really high on paper. But ignoring that, the more important thing is the form that they're in. They haven't lost in over 23 matches in a row, including playing Brazil, Germany, Spain, and they just crushed the US 5-1 in the warm-up match before the tournament started. Provided they can beat Brazil in the elimination rounds, they're likely going to play Argentina in the final, and then it comes down to just one match where you never know. So keep an eye on them. I think they have a really good chance of surprising everyone. The other 2 countries worth calling out, Uruguay and Mexico, they're ranked on paper relatively high and are the other favorites in the tournament, but honestly, Mexico have not looked really good for a while. Just cohesively, they're not at that level they need to be at, kind of like the US. And Uruguay have really good players on paper, but a lot of their best players have either just stopped playing or their very best are now getting a little older. And this tournament, I just don't think they're going to be at the level to win the whole thing. I think they need a restart of their whole system to get back to the level they normally play at. The Euros is much harder to predict who's going to win it just because of how many great teams there are that can win it on their own, let alone the potential for any major upsets. Now, before I get into talking about the countries and who I think is going to do well, I did want to call out the players, but honestly, there's just too many to do that. So I do want to call out only one person in particular, this guy again, Cristiano Ronaldo. Like Messi, he is one of the very best players in the history of the game. He has the most goals for any player on the international level. And like Messi, unfortunately, they're both getting up there in age. Ronaldo's a little bit older than Messi, so there's a chance that he does not play in 2 years in the World Cup, and this is his final major international tournament. If that's the case, I really suggest anytime Portugal play, you make sure you watch Ronaldo. Just like anytime Argentina plays, I really suggest you watch Messi. They are just a joy to watch. You're going to regret not being able to watch them if you have the chance. So first up, I got to talk about England. If you're like me watching the Euros in the US, the media coverage is non-stop about England for whatever reason, but to be fair, they are one of the favorites to win the tournament along with France. Now, the funny thing with England, though, is that despite how good they are on paper, and this time they are really good on paper, England historically always comedically collapses when it actually matters most. As much as we associate soccer with England, they've never won the Euros, and they've only once won the World Cup, all the way back in 1966. If anything, they're more known at this point for collapsing than having really good teams. That being said, though, I think they have a really good team and have as good of a chance as anyone else in this tournament. Jude Bellingham is definitely one of the rising stars in world soccer, and Harry Kane is probably the best striker in the world right now. But if you're going off of history, you got to assume the same thing's going to happen, and they're probably going to get really far. I'm assuming maybe the semifinals, and then they're going to lose. It's just what they do. France is the other country favored to win the Euros, and with really good reason. They're just incredibly good front to back. They won the World Cup in 2018. They made the World Cup final in 2022, where they lost to Messi's Argentina only on penalties, and a huge reason for that is Kylian Mbappe. He's easily one of the best players in the world right now and will be for a very long time. And honestly, there's not too much more to say about France. They just have world-class players at every single position and are going to go very far in this tournament. There's no question about it. Next up is Belgium. Oh, Belgium. Belgium is like England in that, based on their recent history at least, as good as they are on paper and leading up to tournaments, they just can't win when it actually matters. They have what's called a golden generation of a number of really great players all coming up at the same time, and those players in their professional clubs have won every award possible at the highest level. Even on the national side, they look incredibly good leading up to major tournaments like the World Cup, like the Euros. They, in fact, right now are in amazing form, not having lost in 10 matches in a row, but you have to go off of history here. They just every single time underperform. I don't think they're going to win the Euros this time. And that's also including the fact that the team is now just older than they have been at their peak. So unfortunately, Belgium just going to underperform yet again. And I think this is probably their last hurrah of being considered one of those great teams. Portugal are also a really solid team. And while they do have Ronaldo, I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off. They did win the Euros not too long ago. So I think they won that major award that Ronaldo was going after, but Ronaldo, like I said, is a little bit older. There are also other players on this team who are older, and while I think they're going to do pretty well, I think against the very best, like England and France and a few other surprises, I just don't think they're going to be able to pull it off again this time. The Netherlands are also a really solid club and historically are one of the best international countries in the world, also having produced some of the very best players in the history of the game. I think the problem for the Netherlands, though, is that the team is a solid squad of B and B plus players. What they're missing is that truly elite level player that's going to be the difference maker when it really matters. So while I think the team is really good, they may even cause an upset or two, I don't think they have enough in them to actually win this tournament. Again, solely down to missing that elite level star that's going to be able to win the game when it really matters in the big final matches. Next up is Spain, who in my opinion are one of the two underdogs in the tournament. Now, I say underdog for a team that is ranked top 10 in the world, but no one seems to be talking about them in the same breath as England and France, and I don't really know why. I think they have one of the most exciting young teams in the world, and to compare them to the Netherlands, who are full of, in my opinion, B and B plus players, Spain is full of nothing but A's, with a couple of A pluses standing out. They have all you need to want to win a tournament like this, and I think this is going to be the beginning of a new era of Spain going really far, if not winning the major tournaments like the Euros and the World Cup. So don't be surprised if this is the start of a long term of Spanish dominance. Italy are the current holders of the Euros, and a really strange team. They won the Euros, but then they don't qualify for the World Cup. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't know what to make of a country like this. They're just really good. They have star players. I personally don't think they have what it takes to win a major tournament like this, but a lot of people thought that, and then they won the last one. So honestly, I don't know. They're a good squad. Check them out. Who knows how far they're going to go. Croatia, ranked at number 10, in my opinion, is ranked way too high. Now, part of my problem with the FIFA rankings is that part of that ranking is based on performance from past years, and less weight is put on those previous years' performance, but it still is a factor. And for Croatia, they were incredibly good and performed really, really well a number of years ago. But the problem is the same midfield they put out 8 years ago in tournaments like this, which was definitely the best midfield in the world, is the same midfield they're putting out there today. They're just a lot older than they used to be. And in tournaments like this, where you're playing a lot of games really, really quickly, I don't think they're going to be able to keep it up over a tournament, and they're just not going to go really far. I think Croatia are going to probably go out pretty early, which is unfortunate because that midfield really is one of the all-time best, but their time has just come and they need to refresh the whole team. Last country I'm going to review is host country of the tournament, Germany. I think they, along with Spain, are the big underdogs, in my opinion, to win the whole tournament. I think they have that perfect combination of some veterans providing leadership, but also some really, really good young up-and-coming talent. They also have an incredibly good head coach, Nagelsmann, who recently took over, and the team is perfectly adapting to his style. I think you combine that youth, that veteran leadership, that amazing coach, the fact that they're playing in their own home country, I think this is a really good recipe for Germany to do incredibly well. And like Spain, I think they are about to start a serious era of being among the very world's best and go back to being ranked in the top 5, which is where they normally are, and not the current ranking they have today. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed learning some more about the Copa and the Euros and getting more context on what to expect out of each of them. One thing I will say is try to watch the matches live if you can with fans from those countries. Find a random bar or restaurant from Slovakia, Bolivia, Denmark. Become a fan for 2 hours. I think you're going to really, really enjoy the live experience of international soccer. There's really nothing like seeing everyone draped in the same kit, singing the national anthems, and just kind of really going crazy. There's nothing else like it for any American sport. I'd really, really suggest you do it. It's a huge part of the appeal of these tournaments and really, really fun. I think you're going to really enjoy it. So that's it for this one. I'm going to make some more videos. I think the next one will be about the Olympics, which starts right after the Copa and the Euros are over. And then after that, I plan on probably doing videos about the various different leagues in Europe and how they're different. And if you're going to start watching, why you would watch one over the other. So hope you have fun. Enjoy watching the games, and I'll see you next time. Bye.